Welcome to the Fantasy Football Garage. I'm Chris. My friends call me the Candyman, and you already know what time it is. Tonight, we're drafting best ball teams, looking ahead to week 5 of the NFL, talking about what happened in week 4. We've got waivers, we've got trades to make, and start decisions coming up. Bucky Irving could be injured, could be out this week. We'll see. We know one thing's for sure. Joe Flacco benched for Dylan Gabriel. So in your super flex leagues, that's definitely newsworthy. Of course, Tyreek Hill being out for the season. Malik Neighbors is the other big injury from the weekend. But all of this and more tonight as we look ahead to week 5. I'll be doing some Q&A with the chat, talking through waivers, waiver decisions, who to add, who to drop, any trades that might be coming up. You're trying to get different, trying to go from a 1-3 or a 2-2 start to make something happen in week 5 and get that W. And we're going to look at some primetime slates for on Underdog and maybe do some primetime Palooza drafts or whatever we can get into tonight. But first, let's kick it to the intro and get right into it. Let's do it. But overall, it's like the guy can ball. Like actions speak louder than words. Ayo, how we doing tonight, everyone? Happy Tuesday. What a fun Monday Night Football game. Ending in a tie could be better, but man, that the Dallas offense did catch on. They were able to make some noise against the Green Bay Packers. Pretty stout defense, but they got it done. So that's a pretty fun outcome there. And yeah, I think it was a fun matchup. So that was a great Monday Night Football game. And now we're on to week 5. I was looking at my waivers. I've got a few waiver wires claims that I'm putting in my home league. I'm looking to add Kendre Miller. Right now I have it as a $5 bid. I lowered it. I had it at like a $11 bid, and I lowered it to $5. I think that's probably good enough to get it done. We'll see. As for my backup bids after that, I've got Darius Slayton in for $0, Malik Washington in for $0, Brashard Smith in for $0. So I don't know. My home league, people tend to hold on to their money till the very end, and then the guys who spend it early have already spent it, like me. So I'm going to put in some cheaper bids and try not to go overboard this week. I've got, who do I really have on a buy? I mean, just Luther Burden is my main receiver on a buy, but I have Bucky Irving as my RB2 or flex because I also have Ken Walker in my flex. So I'm really, if Bucky Irving's out, I'm going to be flexing an extra wide receiver this week, most likely, if I don't pick up Kendre Miller here. And it might be Darius Slayton or it might be Malik Washington, but that seems a little bit thin. I probably would just go Chris Godwin. Seeing the kind of usage he was getting, I think it's pretty encouraging. I know he didn't do a lot with it, but I think there's some good signals there that Godwin going forward is at least out there running routes and maybe getting more up to speed and better each week kind of situation. So we'll look for that. Shout out to Who Hames in the chat for stopping by. Appreciate you, my man. We got Chris B, CV Jets fan, also in the house. Man, tough start for the Jets. Man, real rough. Fun for fantasy. Fields had that big rushing touchdown. That was pretty sick. Had a nice pass to Garrett Wilson as well, and Mason Taylor getting more and more involved. So some fun things on the fantasy side coming from the Jets, but not a great real football start for them. Yeah, what's up, Billy? GM, how we doing, brother? Hope you're having a good Tuesday night. What's up, Frizz? Oh, how we doing? Doing good. Kind of a late start. Bedtime did not go as planned, but that's part of the gig. That's part of parenting. So we adjust and we continue on. What are you guys doing with your waivers this week? Whether it's your home league or maybe it's some of your other redraft or dynasty leagues. Do you have any surprise waiver additions you're making? The guy that I'm not wavering for in my home league is actually Kenny Gainwell. And I would have wavered for him if he wasn't on his bye week. But I think going into the bye week, coming out, assuming Jalen Warren's healthy, he's going to be pretty limited, I think, going forward. I think we missed his biggest game of the season, so I don't really want to chase that. But if you had extra bench spots, I wouldn't tell you not to pick him up. Just not for me. I don't think I have the room for him. Yeah, what's up, Marvin? How we doing, brother? So being a Kamara, would you grab Miller and drop Pacheco? That's kind of interesting. I don't think I'm ready to drop Pacheco yet for Kendre. Even if I have Kamara, like I'm not big into handcuffing my own guys. I rather just want to go for any player that has standalone value. And I do think Kendre Miller has some standalone value going forward. We'll just see like how often that is relevant because I think it's still Kamara's job, and I think it's still going to be a huge workload for Kamara, and then Kendre Miller gets the rest of it. It's kind of like we were seeing with the Breece Hall, Braylon Allen split before Braylon Allen got injured. It's kind of like we're seeing with in some other situations too, kind of those split backfields. But I think Kamara still holds down like 60 to 65% of the snaps and a lot of the opportunity. But Kendre Miller, I think, has some standalone value. I just don't know. I think Pacheco actually still has an edge, even though he's had a really bad start. He's like a three-headed monster, splitting the work not only with Kareem Hunt in the short yardage in the red zone, but also then splitting the passing down work with Brashard Smith. He's going to like increase his role going forward. So I'm pretty bearish on Isaiah Pacheco going forward, but he's still in a Chiefs offense that can put up numbers. We just saw Mahomes had a 4-touchdown game, so you want a piece of that, you want access to that, and it paid off. I mean, even Pacheco was a flex-worthy start in this last week. Kendre Miller was too, but a little bit maybe harder to expect that week to week with the Saints, where they might be, who knows what's going on. They run a lot of plays. They do run a lot of plays, but the whole Spencer Rattler experiment right now is definitely not great for real life football for them. And then for fantasy, it's pretty sporadic. So I'm actually going to say not to grab Miller and drop Pacheco particularly yet, but I can see how you're starting to get close to that. But if you have another option that you could drop for Kendre Miller, I think I'm for picking him up. Have the highest waiver priority and lost neighbors and has Lamar questionable. Yeah, Lamar's definitely out, right? Dude, get Dart unless it's single. You're saying it's single QB, right? Hate to burn the priority on Dart. Could get CJ Stroud without using my waiver instead. Should I grab Dart? Should I save priority when a big running back goes down? Kind of tough for me. I remember before I did Fab in my home league, we used to do waivers, many years ago. So I remember those days. It's hard for me to conceptualize right now, like what's worth holding out for. But I would think if you're single quarterback, you can just grab Stroud for free. Maybe do that. I think Dart seems like he could be, kind of a plus play at QB and single QB if you have Lamar out for the meanwhile. But I get what you're saying. It depends on your record too. It's like how badly do you need to win while Lamar is out? Because if you have to win with Lamar out, you might want to go for Dart. Marvin saying, would I stack Quentin Johnston with Pickens over Jamar Chase? When I start him? Tough. It's tough going forward. I mean, you're going to want to start Quentin Johnston going forward, and we just saw what Pickens is doing without CeeDee Lamb active. So I think they're both starts. I would try to figure out a way to get all 3 of these guys in my lineup, whether it's flexing one of them. If you're just your roster's loaded, I would go down to the matchups. And so let me go ahead and pull up this week's matchups and do a quick preview there. So if we're looking at the matchup for the Cowboys, they're playing the New York Giants or New York Jets. I think that's a pretty good matchup. I mean, it's going to be probably Sauce Gardner on Pickens. We just saw Darren Waller, scored 2 touchdowns, and the Dolphins had some success passing the ball in that game. So I'm cool with Pickens in that matchup. It seems fine so far. The other one you said was Quentin Johnston. I know the Chargers are playing the Commanders. I think that's a fine matchup too. Michael Penix just had a get right game against that Washington defense. So I like that one. And then the Bengals versus Detroit, I think is also a fine matchup. Like that's going to be a big, well, I guess we're kind of now we're counting out to an extent like the Cincinnati Bengals offense, thinking they're not so good with Jake Browning. Maybe Jake Browning has a bounce back game against Detroit, and maybe you do want to have Jamar Chase in a piece of that where Detroit Lions can put up a ton of points. And so we know Cincinnati's most likely playing from behind, passing game scenario. We just saw that against the Broncos, didn't work out. Maybe it gets better. There's a lot of, variability week to week in what can happen. So I want to start all 3 of those guys if you possibly can, right? But I think obviously following the signal of Quentin Johnston and George Pickens, and then I would have Jamar Chase like trying to figure out how to get him in. Yeah, what's up, Disbanded? How we doing, brother? Hope you're having a great Tuesday night. Thanks for stopping by. Pacheco drop for Woody Marks. Not for me. I would still rather have Pacheco than Woody Marks at this current moment. If you're in like a full PPR, and I mean, I don't think the Texans are that good. Their offensive line is terrible. Their offense is not scoring a lot of points. They just put up a good game against one of the worst teams, if not the worst team in the league. Their schedule going forward is not that appealing. It's okay. I think Woody Marks is like in the same conversation, as maybe like could Woody Marks be a breakout running back for the rest of the season? Potentially, yes. Still on a bad team, like I said. Pacheco is already the starting running back on a much better team. So if you want to just chase the excitement, you might go for Woody Marks. And maybe as Pacheco loses his a role to losing snaps to Brashard Smith and Kareem Hunt going forward, that Woody Marks ends up having more high value touches per game. I maybe could see that, but I still think I just would rather have the starting running back for the Chiefs than the backup running back on the Texans. But people are pretty hyped on Woody Marks right now. I mean, everyone is victory lapping that they already picked him up or whatever. I think it's a little bit much. Matthew Golden or Romeo Dobbs rest of season. I think for right now, Dobbs has the consistency. Dobbs has the floor, and he's got a lot of touchdown upside. He's got definitely the connection with Love. So Golden or Dobbs rest of season, I would think it's like a slight lean to Dobbs based on the game we just saw. And we still haven't seen a complete game from Matthew Golden. We've just seen glances and hints here and there that he can be effective with catching those deep balls. They're getting him more involved. But I think honestly, right now at the moment, it's if you're right between the two, I think Dobbs right now has the touchdown upside. So that's where I'm kind of leaning. Chase the touchdowns. But obviously, I'm still a big fan of Golden, a big bull on like. I'm very bullish on like what Golden's outcomes could be towards the end of the season as he progresses in his first year as a rookie. What's up, Nihal? How we doing, brother? Start one. Corum, Miller, Brian Robinson, can't do that, or Sean Tucker. Yeah, this is tough. Let me let the dog out real quick, and I'll come back to this one. But yeah, I follow you. I'm back. Corum, he's starting to get some opportunity. It's a good offense, a good team. He's definitely behind Kyron Williams. Miller, not a great team, but running a very high pace offense. We just saw what he could do getting some touches. Kamara still had a big role. It's just Kendra happened to, um, you know, get the touchdown, and that really kind of floated him along with his 11 carries. He didn't have any receiving work. He really hasn't been involved there. Kamara's still involved there. It's a big floor kind of boost for Kamara. Brian Robinson not as interested, and then Sean Tucker can be a spot start guy, but it's really hard to know, and that's especially if Bucky's out. So if I had to start one for this week in particular, I'm going to pull up the schedule to help me with this one because I don't know if I want to go Saints or Rams, but I'm leaning Rams. Saints play New York Giants. That's a plus matchup. So I think that's actually decent for Kendre Miller to get some work. The other one would be the Rams, and they play. I just had it. Where'd the Rams go? Oh, Thursday night. Duh. Yeah, the Rams play on Thursday night, so I think that's kind of a fine matchup too. Like slight lean to. Let me see. I'm gonna review. Actually, I need to look and see what Corum did, particularly this last week. Yeah, still nine carries and 4 receptions. I mean, he's in a better offense than Kendre Miller, and he's getting work. He had a game in week 2 similar to what Kendre just did. San Francisco is probably a better matchup than the New York Giants. No, probably a harder matchup. I mean, the Giants are an easier matchup, but it's the Saints. Kendre's playing about 31% of snaps. I'm gonna look back at Corum one last time just to give you a really good answer on this because I know they play Thursday. Corums are out about 30% of snaps. They're very similar. I think this is a great debate question. Kendre Miller and as a flex or Blake Corum in week 5. I think I do go slight nod to Blake Corum, and it's pretty close. Billy's 4-0. Hell yeah. Congrats, Billy. Gonna keep it free. Great call. Hey, appreciate you. Yeah, I think save if you can chill, if you can afford to lose a week or even 2 with Lamar out, because that bye is coming up, and just start another QB off the waiver wire, but don't burn your top priority. Like just pick someone up for free, like a CJ Stroud. If you think, I think that's probably fine. But Dart, people are pretty excited about him too. You'll get Lamar back. Unless something goes really wrong with the hamstring, Lamar should be back. Worst case scenario, he's out past his bye, which is week 7, so be out for 3 weeks. I think that's also a possibility though. So you need to be prepared for that and have, Stroud is going to be out week 6, so you might just have to kind of ping pong around QBs and add some and drop some in the meantime if you don't have like a true other QB on your bench to pop in there and start. Should you use your number 2 priority on Kendre Miller? I think you could. I think you could. If you don't, other people will use their lower priorities to get him, and you'll still be sitting there with your priority waiver. It just depends. I would use your number 2 on Kendre if you think you need to flex Kendre this week. If Kendre is going straight to your bench, I would not use the waiver on him because just pick someone up for free that's going to go straight to your bench. And then, what's the difference? Because I don't know that Kendre Miller is going to be an impact player immediately. I think he just has some upside, and now he's the clear RB2, but it's still a bad offense, a good pace of play. Alvin Kamara still exists. He's still there. Yeah, what's up, Pred? How we doing? Browning looking terrible. I know, man. What a rough go. What a rough outing. That was a tough one to watch last night. Yeah, I guess I was referring to the Dallas Green Bay game was 2 nights ago. But last night we had the Broncos in the Bengals, and it was pretty rough. Pretty rough. The Cincinnati Bengals trending downward. And Browning, in 2023, he started 7 times for the Bengals in relief of Joe Burrow. 5 of those 7 games as a starter. He was a top 12 quarterback on the week in fantasy. So it's possible he bounces back. I think, it can get better. We'll have to look at their schedule because I know, let me pull it up again. The Bengals this week are facing Detroit Lions. We just talked about that in a potential matchup. I think honestly could be a kind of a get right, and we'll see. Potentially, yeah, the Broncos defense was just had their number kind of situation. I think it can potentially get better, but yeah, it's been rough, right, man? Is Josh Downs droppable? I wouldn't love to drop him. I would be pretty skeptical of dropping him. I know that it's been a pretty bad go, but the talent is there. He's just kind of not really getting it done right now. It's partly because Pittman is, Tyler Warren, Jonathan Taylor, the way the offense is going, but he's a good player on a good team. It just depends on like what else is available. What else are you trying to like give up off your bench to move him? I still think he's a good piece and can have some value at some point this season. So I wouldn't want to drop him. I think he's about to be borderline droppable though if there's bye weeks and other positional needs, whether you have an injured tight end or quarterback that you need to replace or someone on a bye week you have to replace. That's when it starts to become tricky. Drafting Josh Downs. I was drafting Josh Downs all summer. I think, his ADP ended up rising around to pick, 80 range. People are pretty optimistic about Josh Downs. He wasn't the Colts receiver I had the most of. I had the most of Alec Pierce and Adonai Mitchell. Pretty bullish on those guys just because of their big playability. But Josh Downs is definitely a good player, and the Colts are proving to be a good team. Definitely undervalued. It's just been a tough start, I guess, for Josh Downs and what his connection is with Daniel Jones. He did have, what was it, 8 targets in week 2, turned that into 6 receptions for 51 yards. I think it can get better. If it hits pay dirt in one of these weeks, it'll start to look better. The team is 4th in passing yards, 3rd in offense. They're just a little bit behind in touchdowns. And I think, how many passing touchdowns does Daniel Jones have? Daniel Jones only has 4 passing touchdowns through 4 games. So that's mainly, I think, one of the limiting factors here. Daniel Jones has thrown 1 touchdown in every game. That makes it hard for a lot of different receivers to pay off in fantasy. Hey, what's up, Brian? How we doing, brother? Who Hames, my man? I have Marks over Woody. Yeah, he LOL. He definitely meant Marks over Pacheco. One sec, gotta grab the dog. She wants to come back in. Go figure. His Marks over Pacheco. People are pretty high on Pacheco. On Marks right now. Yeah. I need to see it to believe it. It's like it's 1 week against the worst team with Woody Marks. I like that he has the pass catching upside. That's what really helps. Dang, I gotta catch up. Y'all are going off, popping off in the chat. What's up, Among Us? Got Brian in here. The Schmitty, what's up? Hall's in here. We got Sam21. How we doing, brother? Marvin. We got G for Gamer Kid. What's up, my man? Billy, of course. Brandon, how we doing? Bud. And then Who Hames, yeah. I'll go through these pretty quick. I'll catch up with y'all. I got to catch up a little bit. Would I trade Bijan? Ooh, I don't want to trade Bijan. But would I trade Bijan and Worthy for Cook and JSN? Because you've got Bijan and a Dunze and a bye and you're 1-3, I don't know if I can afford a loss here. That's kind of an interesting point. I don't know. I don't think I want to do that. I think I think it's a long season. You'll be all right. We gotta hold on to Bijan. We can't be moving Bijan, even though Cook's a pretty appealing option with the high touchdown upside, and he's been super efficient and putting up some yardage as well. Let me know in the chat. What do you guys think? Should Nihal trade Bijan and Worthy for Cook and JSN, knowing that he's got Bijan and Adunze on a bye? He's 1-3. Man, that's crazy that you're 1-3 with Bijan and Adunze on your team. Bad luck, man. Among Us says, whole dynasty team is hurt and it's only week 4. Yeah, it's time to tank, brother. Trade those assets and tank Connor, Mixon, CD, Neighbors, Hill, Rice, and I don't own my first. Bro, that's tough. That hurts. Oh, that really hurts. Overstating Marks? I think a little bit. Some people have been excited and high on Marks throughout this summer, so I can see where it's coming from. It's a great week to victory lap. Week 4 is an easy week to victory lap when a guy you like hits. If we just saw RJ Harvey have a pretty good game. If we saw Hampton have a good game, Genty have a good game, we've seen Scattaboo having good games. If we saw a guy like Travion Henderson, we see Judkins having good games. If we saw Travion Henderson do what Marks did, I think we'd be pretty excited. So I think it's fair. I just am worried about how limited the Texans' offense is. But that's a pretty elite amount of touches. 17 rushing attempts, the 5 targets, 4 receptions. These are some elite numbers, 2 touchdowns. I just coming up against Tennessee, I don't know. The more I look at it, the usage on Marks was pretty insane. I'm looking at Nick Chubb. The counterpoint, though, is Nick Chubb still had 13 carries and 2 receptions, 2 targets, played 42% of the snaps. Woody Marks played 56% of the snaps. So there's kind of a flip there. I think that is a signal, but it just comes down. I was never in on Chubb. It just comes down to, I think we have some confirmation today that Joe Mixon's really not playing this season. And even if Woody Marks is the RB1 for the Texans, how valuable is that role? I think it can be okay. I think it's still like a week in, week out flex. We'll see. Maybe he'll be wrong. Maybe he'll surprise. Weirder things have happened. Like he could be this year's Bucky Irving, right? Brian says add Brashard Smith or Emmanuel Wilson. Drop Miles Sanders. I would go Brashard Smith over Emmanuel Wilson, but I'm a big fan of Emmanuel Wilson. Manny Wilson, I think he's a extremely good handcuff for Josh Jacobs and a great offense for the Packers. He's good in his own right. He's very efficient, and he'll be able to run behind that offensive line. They've had some injuries on the Packers. Brashard Smith, though, is looking pretty exciting from a passing as a part of the passing game for KC that should grow, and maybe his role becomes something even bigger. So I would go Brashard Smith right now just for the upside, and I would definitely drop Miles Sanders. Yeah, Marks was getting, it's one game sample against the worst team in the league, but he was getting some carries, right? Yeah, that's part of it, right? But I was messaging, I was tweeting at Justin Herzig today. He had put out, his FF and 60 newsletter. If you don't already subscribe to it, definitely make sure you're subscribed. Get that in your inbox every morning. The FF and 60 newsletter from Justin Herzig, and he was talking about his waiver priority today. He's pretty high on Woody Marks. He actually is really high on Woody Marks going forward. So that is a signal in itself. And the point I was kind of asking him, like, it was the Texans, their schedule's not great going forward. And he was like, well, the high floor with the receptions is also another factor in this that you have to think about. So that's a great point, Brian. Yo, the Schmitty, start 2 running backs. We got David Montgomery. We have Travion Henderson, Benson, and Marks. Let's look at the schedule for next week to give us a help with this answer. So David Montgomery and the Lions are going up against the Cincinnati Bengals. I think that's a smash spot. I think you definitely want to play Montgomery in that spot. Henderson and the Patriots are playing Buffalo. Seems fine. It's a Buffalo minus 7.5, 49.5 over under. Seems fine, but still, Stevenson's holding down a big part of that role. Even Gibson getting a touchdown in week 4. Benson might be injured, so we have to wait and see on that one, but he is playing the Titans. So that could be a good get right spot for him if he does play. And then Woody Marks and the Texans going up against the Baltimore Ravens, who are one of the worst defenses in the league, and letting everyone just dominate. Those offenses just dominate with the ball. So this is actually pretty tough. But if you had to start 2, my initial take would be a slight lean to Montgomery and potentially Benson. A close third would be Marks. And I think right now, at the current moment, Henderson's actually number 4 in this situation, which sounds crazy, but he's just not getting enough snaps and he's not getting the usage that we want right now. I still think he's hyper efficient. I mean, he also scored a touchdown last week. I'm just pulling it up now. He's definitely usable. He's definitely exciting. I think Buffalo's a fine matchup. These are you have 4 good options to fill 2 spots. As the week goes on, we can kind of refine our answer, especially if Benson is actually out or injured or limited. But yeah, 4 good options there. 4 good matchups. Who did I? Oh, Pred Talk draft in the 10th. Downs looking solid last year. Yeah, yeah. We all drafted Downs. We all drafted Downs. Yeah. What's up, Sam? How we doing, brother? He says, "Hey, bro, should I trade Kamara and Pollard for AJ and Marvin? I lost neighbors and need more wide receiver help. I have Benson, Chuba Hubbard, Jordan Mason, and Judkins. Yeah, green light. Based on your running back room, you have Chuba Hubbard, who's splitting some work with Dowdle. You got Benson, who might be injured, but and then DeMarcado factors in. But honestly, I think Benson can hold it down. Mason is one of my favorite players this year. Didn't have the best week 4. I expected some more out of him, but I think there's still a good opportunity going forward. And then Judkins is smashing. We love Judkins. So you've got 4 running backs that I would feel confident in going forward. If you can trade Kamara and Pollard, who are on 2 bad teams, older running backs, for AJ Brown, stud, love him, and Marvin Harrison Jr., who had a decent game in his own right, and we're expecting more out of him, then I think that can help you, getting more wide receiver talent to replace Malik Neighbors. So I'm in. I would say, yeah, let's do it. I like that trade for you. Hey, appreciate you, my man. Marvin, thanks for being here. Hope you're having a great Tuesday, brother. Would you flex Deebo Samuel or Judkins? A-Chain Kamara are my starters. I like your starters. Even though I was just telling him to trade Kamara, I still recognize Kamara has a lot of value. I like A-Chain a lot, obviously, too. The Dolphins are playing Carolina. That should be good. Kamara is playing the New York Giants, like we've been talking about with the Kendre Miller matchup. That should be good. I want Judkins in your lineup. The Browns against Minnesota, though, it's somewhat tough. Minnesota's a tough defense, but they're tough on QBs, and They actually, we just saw Kenny Gainwell go off against Minnesota. Quinshon Judkins is better than Kenny Gainwell. I think it's actually a good spot for Judkins. The problem is now I'm telling you to bench Debo Samuel, and I love Debo Samuel. It should be a fun matchup against the Chargers, and especially if McLaurin sits again, right? Because Debo putting up numbers, he's getting utilized. They're giving him handoffs. Had another touchdown, his second touchdown on the season in week 4 against Atlanta, who's a pretty good defense in their own right. He was a top 12 wide receiver on the week in half PPR, 72 receiving yards, did some work on the ground, like I said. So I like Debo. I love the way they're utilizing him. I think he's a guy you really can't sit. So this is tough. I think you might need to figure out a way to get both Debo and Judkins in your lineup. But if you have so many good options, then I think what it comes down to is potential. Let me look at Judkins one last time. Potentially, it seems too hard to bench. You can't bench Judkins right now. He's like one of the hottest, most utilized running backs right now, and he's not even playing all the snaps. Imagine if he played, 75% of the snaps versus 60%. He'd The only thing about Judkins is, and he's got good yardage. I don't know. There's nothing against Judkins. I have a slight lean to Judkins over Debo right now, especially if you're in half point. But I think I want to find a way to get Debo in your lineup too. Your receivers must be really solid then. Get AJ low. Yeah, buy low for AJ Brown, I think could be smart. Benson Judkins work at RB. There you go. Yeah, your QBs, Mac Jones, Darnold, Lawrence this week. That's pretty tough. I would probably go with Darnold or Lawrence. You're thinking Mac. I think Purdy might start. I know there's the whole toe injury thing. The 49ers are so banged up though. Not Roma Dunze. Ricky Pearsall might not even play. If Ricky Pearsall's out, slight avoid. They're gonna run it through McCaffrey and even pass to McCaffrey, but that could be a tough spot. I have some faith in Darnold. G for Gamer Kid, how we doing, brother? Trade Chase Brown for Keenan and Chase Brown and Keenan for Monty and Rice. This is tough. What do you guys think in the chat? Because I'm very in on Rashee Rice. I think he could be a top 5 wide receiver the rest of the season going forward when he's healthy. Keenan Allen's been really good. Can he keep that momentum going? Maybe. I think Keenan Allen. Chase Brown, I want to get rid of because of what's going on there with the Bengals. It's gonna be hard for them to score. Chase Brown is volume dependent. He's not super efficient. He doesn't generate a whole lot of yards on his own. He needs the touchdowns. He needs Joe Burrow driving that offense forward. So yes, let's do it. This is to me, this is easy. I want the best player in the trade. The best player in this trade is Rashee Rice. I say go for it, especially if your team's doing all right. You think you can float along a little bit until Rashee Rice comes back in week 7. He also has a week 10 bye. Yeah, I think it could be close, right? Yo, what's up? Hey, it's Captain Clutch Pants again. How we doing, brother? What's up, man? Trade for you. Full PPR 12 man. Sending Gibbs, BTJ, Kraft, and Spears. My head is spinning. That's getting rid of Gibbs and Kraft seems like I wouldn't want to do that ever. And then BTJ is actually kind of a buy low. And I mean, he's still not getting it together, right? So I'm pulling him up right now before I speak out of turn. But yeah, it's just still not coming together. I do remember that. And then Spears is coming back from the IR. So I kind of like Spears, but also, what's the value in a lot of these leagues? He's replaceable. But you get JT, Debo, DK, and Marks. I personally want Gibbs over JT. Debo is good. DK is good. Marks is fine. If if you think you don't need Kraft at your tight end spot, if you have another elite tight end, maybe this trade, but or if you're just really excited about Marks going forward and Debo, I like Debo. We just talked about how good Marks can be. I think DK Metcalf's fine. He's had some touchdown luck, but also Aaron Rodgers has a high touchdown rate, so that's not too unexpected. And he's definitely the alpha receiver there in that offense for the Steelers. Looked pretty good in week 4. Yeah, I hate trading Jahmyr Gibbs, but I think this is a fine trade if you're interested in pursuing this and getting rid of Kraft. PPR, Brian says Evans, so Mike Evans, Henderson, and Hawk for Rice, Mason, and Kincaid. I want the Rice, Mason, and Kincaid side. Drop Ollie Gordon for Kendre Miller. You know, I personally probably prefer. I probably prefer. I probably would want Kendre Miller. It's tough. I think Ollie Gordon is also interesting and kind of a fun handcuff and late season sleeper. The Dolphins offense, not the most exciting. They don't really score a whole lot of points. They did well against the Jets in week 4. A lot to be desired. They don't really run the ball very well, and Achane's locking up most of that. So Ollie Gordon becomes more touchdown dependent. I think Kendre Miller, his role could expand, but at the same time, Alvin Kamara's in the way. I think Achane's a bigger roadblock. So let's say yes. I would say this is fine for Billy. Brandon, how we doing, brother? Thoughts on Jamar Chase? Have an offer to trade him to get Ladd and RJ Harvey. That's tough. That's right on the borderline. Yes, let's do it. Let's get some Ladd. Let's hope that his second half of, we have 2/3 of the season left. Plus, we have more than that. 3/4 of the season, 2/3 of the season. Let's hope that Ladd McConkey gets his stuff together. And we've seen, Ladd be a big part of the current offense that he's in. Jamar Chase, without Joe Burrow, it's not looking so good. Plus, you get RJ Harvey thrown in there, and I'm pretty excited about Harvey. We just saw him have a kind of a breakout week 2, getting used a bunch. Yes, it was in relief after the Broncos already had a huge lead on the Bengals, but Harvey's explosive. He's a touchdown merchant. We like him. So I think this is enough. I think this is just enough to trade Jamar Chase. I've been pretty big advocating to sell Jamar Chase for about the last week. So I will admit that. Marks is Woody. Yeah. Who Hames? Yeah, if y'all didn't know, me and I'm about to after I finish up tonight, I'm gonna post another go live for tomorrow. Tomorrow night at a similar time, Who Hames and I and Hartman are gonna go live with a full main slate preview for week 5. It's gonna be fun. Talking ball, and we'll do a lot of question and answer with the chat as well. So make sure you guys are there for that, and we'll see you there tomorrow night with Who Hames and Hartman. So I'm looking forward to that. Hey, appreciate you, my man. Forgot. I mean, I haven't said it. We're already 45 minutes in. Haven't said it. Make sure you're subbed to the channel. Make sure you hit the like. Come say what up in the chat. Come ask your questions. Fantasy football, waivers, trades, sit starts, rest of season outlook, anything you got. Dynasty, redraft, talking best ball, drafting best ball. We do it all here in the Fantasy Football Garage. Hope you guys are having a great Tuesday night. Slap the like button. Get in here, say what up in the chat. That's what it's all about. Good vibes, having some fun, learning a little bit more every day, trying to win these leagues, help each other out. Yeah, okay, back to the Bijan trade. I follow. I'm going to scroll down, make sure I catch y'all in here. Say what up. I see a lot of Brian, a lot of Who Hames. Nihal's in here. You guys are keeping it, holding it down. I see James in here. What's up, James? Marvin again. Pred Talk. Sweet. Okay. I'll catch up. I will catch up. Yeah. Trey Benson might be injured. Yeah. He might be injured. They said they had a voluntary walkthrough practice, I think Monday, and he sat out. So we'll get more information. We're waiting some news. Thinks Marks is low end RB2. That's very fair. We had the worthy week 1. That's how it happens. Yep. Just tough. It's just tough to. I see what you're saying, Nihal. It's just tough. I've had some of those weeks myself. I had the CD Lamb 0 week in my home league, and I lost because I lost by 7 points, and CD Lamb put up a 0. T Higgins also did nothing practically. Yeah, Who Hames is starting to convince me. Y'all are starting to convince me on the Woody Marks thing. Maybe I'm a little bit slow to the game, but to me, it just comes down to the Texans versus the Chiefs. But these facts, yeah, facts. It's good data. He could. They're not totally out on Chubb, and they give him some veteran deference. I would be interested to see the split of first half snaps between Chubb and Marks. And now that the cat's out of the bag with Woody Marks, I think things will change going forward, but I wouldn't be surprised if in the first half, and I off the top of my head, I don't know, but in the first half, it was at 75% Chubb, 25% Marks, or what was the actual split when the game was more competitive? I think Malik Washington is a solid pickup. I think his role will expand a little bit with Tyreek Hill out. He'll definitely be on the field more, but he's more of a scheme touch guy. He's kind of a Debo Samuel light. And so when you look for him to be effective for fantasy, you want to see him getting handoffs, sweeps. You want to see him getting screens. And I think the Tyreek Hill downfield threat role is going to be filled somewhat by potentially a group of guys. Nick Westbrook Akine might be a part of that, but I think Waddle and Achan are just the biggest beneficiaries of getting more targets. And then it looks like Darren Waller's a pretty solid red zone threat, and Tyreek Hill was also an insanely good red zone threat. So besides a deep target kind of guy, speed guy. So Waller might take over more of the red zone, which obviously seems like a path right now. And then Waddle, Achan getting more targets in general. I like Malik Washington. He's a risky kind of week in, week out flex play. Low end flex. True, he did have a big jump. It was the Titans. It was the Titans. It was a blowout. I think they could. I think they have some faith in Woody to do some of this stuff too, though. The short yardage in the goal line. Who Hames is definitely super in on Woody Marks. Interesting. This is also true. It's very rare that a starting running back becomes available. So this is also a good point. Yeah, Woody Marks is not available in any of my leagues, so maybe I just don't have a good feel on like how much fab I'd be willing to spend. Yeah, I just don't know how much you want of the Texans offense. I mean, they have Jaden Higgins, they got Jalen Noel. Both these rookies could come on at some point. They have Christian Kirk coming on. The offensive line is terrible. I just don't know how much you want of the Texans for fantasy. This is true too. Yeah, the Pats and just loving Stevenson. So it's hard for Henderson, but Henderson's super efficient, very effective, very explosive. I think he will still pay off, be a flex play at least, and then his role could increase a lot going forward. Any more fumbles out of Stevenson, I can't imagine there's that long of a leash for that kind of fumbling. Yeah, Achan has the ability to be a high scoring running back any given week. We want to see more rushing touchdowns from him. Garrett Wilson or Judkins rest of season? I'm going to go Garrett Wilson, but I think it's actually becoming pretty close the way they're using Judkins. I just think the talent with Garrett Wilson, hard to ignore. But it's becoming close because they're using Judkins a lot. How effective are the Browns going to be with Dylan Gabriel? I don't know. Waller or Mason Taylor a bigger priority in waivers? That's also a good question. I think the obvious answer would be a slight lean to Waller, and Mason Taylor's not a bad consolation prize. The Jets just don't throw a whole lot. The Dolphins will be throwing more than the Jets. Yeah, generally. Generally, the Dolphins have more passing yards, more passing attempts, more yards per pass attempt, more passing touchdowns. Compared to the Chiefs would be pretty funny. I don't know. I don't know if I think Kamara can be traded for a second in real life. I'm not really aware of like his cap situation and his contract and all that stuff. I'd have to look more into it. I I have a feeling you might not be able to. Maybe he'd be worth less than a second. Sometimes veteran running backs just like don't get a very big market for picks. Marvin asks, would I sit Kamara and plug in Judkins with Achan, put Debo at the flex? I think you can, but I don't love benching Kamara because he's only scored one touchdown this season. His yardage, though, has been really good. He still catches the ball a decent amount. He hasn't had a ton of reception yardage yet. Kind of uncharacteristically low. His efficiency has been pretty bad, but the volume's still there. Because he's not scoring touchdowns, it seems worse than it is. I think it's at your discretion because you've got some good options. But we're kind of like chasing touchdowns here. What makes the difference between Kamara and Judkins being more effective? I think it's close. The more I look into it, I think it's close. Hard to say. We're the only difference between kind of all Judkins, Kamara, or Debo being the better flex option and one of them being benched is like who scores the touchdown. And so we might have to look more into that, figure it out, and maybe look more into these matchups. Ooh, AJ Barner or Schultz, says James. Thanks. I'm gonna go Schultz. I think he led the team in targets last week, if I'm not mistaken. And I'm not a huge Schultz fan, but Barner seems like a risky, touchdown dependent kind of guy. And so that's just what I would think. But yeah, I'm gonna lean Schultz there. Oh, they got Caleb on the bye. Yeah, that makes sense. Hell yeah. Yeah, we love Rice here. Good feedback for G for Gamer. Who Hames is in, Nihal's in, Brian's in, I'm in. Marvin says receivers are Pickens, Quentin Johnson, Devo Metcalf, and Chase. Oh, regarding yeah, because that's right. You're definitely starting. You got you might consider grouping one of these wide receivers like I would sell high on Metcalf. Group Metcalf with like Kamara and try to upgrade big time at either wide receiver or running back would be what I would want to do. Try to consolidate upwards a little bit with your talent because you've got so many good options. It becomes hard to know who to start every week. So you want to just consolidate some of these guys into the more and more talented players that are higher floor and have really high ceilings. Yeah, we love Rice here. What's up, AJ? How we doing? The Chiefs need wins to get that division back. They will pass a lot. Yeah, they're going to be chasing it. They're going to be chasing it to catch up on the Chiefs or the Chargers. Ollie looks good. The Dolphins have been an underwhelming team running the ball. They're pretty efficient. They're just not getting a lot of rushing attempts, and I guess it's because they're playing from behind in most of their situations so far. They're just passing more. Kind of is how I felt about it too. Kind of lateral to go Ollie for Kendre. Lad panic levels out of 10. I know. I'm still very in on Lad McConkey. Just bet on talent, bet on a good team, bet on a good quarterback. Yeah, I think they all Quentin Johnston, Keenan Allen, and Lad McConkey can all have standalone value any given week. So we'll just have to see like what the week turns out. AJ says, I think I'm cooked. I just traded JSN and Amika Egbuka for Jamar Chase and Nico. That's tough. I love Nico Collins. I think he's the only Texan worth rostering until the Woody Marks breakout happens. So I would say I'm cool with getting Nico on your team. JSN's had a pretty good start to the year, but the Darnold, Mike McDonald, Seattle offense, strong defense, ground and pound kind of attack versus the Texans, terrible O line, Kaylee offense that's underwhelming, but maybe it's the line's problem. And can they start to figure things out, try to compete for their division, at least for a wild card spot in their division to make the playoffs? Amika Egbuka is gonna have a big role. Mike Evans is out for a little bit. Godwin coming back, and then Jamar Chase looking pretty disastrous. I've been advocating kind of like selling Jamar Chase with the Jake Browning situation, but obviously the talent's there. This to me, I don't know. It's tough to evaluate when it's just two receivers for two receivers. The obvious answer should be Jamar Chase and Nico Collins is the side you want, but from what we've seen to start the season, you know, it'd be the JSN Amika side. So I don't know. I don't know if you're cooked. I think you've still got two really good players. We'll see how the situation and the matchups are going forward. Jordan Mason or J.K. Dobbins rest of season. I'm definitely in on Mason. Dobbins has had some nice weeks though. RJ Harvey could start to earn more of a role there, and I'm pretty sure Jordan Mason's going to hold it down even when Aaron Jones comes back, whenever that is. So, yeah, I'm going to go Mason, but Dobbins looking really good. Uh, Huham says Mason. Want Mason to catch the ball more? He really won't. You're gonna have to hope that the Vikings are in a positive game script for them where they're running the clock out and running the ball a bunch. Jordan Mason's not going to be heavily involved in the pass game, and we saw that kind of accentuated by the fact that when the Vikings were playing from behind in week 4 against the Steelers, it was Xavier Scott who got a lot of work. Xavier Scott had for himself more than a third of the snaps, 8 targets, 6 receptions. So that's not fun, but that's kind of a one-game sample size. I don't think that's what happens every game going forward, so I still want Jordan Mason, who's a highly efficient rusher. And for Mason, we're looking for 100-yard rushing games and touchdowns consistently, which is kind of what Dobbins is doing. I just think that Dobbins has more competition with Harvey than Mason has going forward. Hey, appreciate you being here. Hope you're having a great Tuesday night, everyone. Make sure you hit that like button. Jump in here. We're doing chat, Q&A, waivers, trades, rest of season outlook. And we're gonna draft some teams tonight too. We're gonna do some underdog primetime palooza, I think. I don't know if they have the primetime hurry up out. I'll have to check. But we're gonna pull some data in, crunch some numbers in a minute, and then draft some teams and continue to do the chat Q&A. Buffalo or Browns D, says Marvin. I think just based on the schedule with the Browns going against Minnesota, I don't love that. It's an early game in London, Sunday morning. Minnesota's good, right? The Bills versus New England. Give me that. I think that's the obvious one to take. But the Browns have one of the best run defenses, if not the best run stop defense. Yeah. Yeah. What up, Hartman? How we doing, brother? Just like that, he's gone. Yeah. In, out, in, out. My poor dog. She goes in and out of the office constantly. She's a little bit restless at night. She's trying to get settled. I think she finally fell asleep. Yeah. Was I ever really here? You guys are just asking questions to a chair the whole time. We may never find out. Who games is in on the Browns D this week? I mean, I think it is kind of they're a good defense. It's a weird spot. They're in London. It's a very low over-under. It's 36.5, if I'm not mistaken. I was just looking at it. 36.5. Minnesota minus 3 point, minus 3.5. Could be a low-scoring game. Pretty bad spot for Jordan Mason, actually. Cleveland starting Dylan Gabriel. Imagine being Joe Flacco and you have to travel across the pond to play in London, but you're actually benched. Sucks. Frizzle says, drop Luther Burden from Lake Washington. Not in my book. No, I want Luther Burden. Unless for some odd reason you need a flex this week. You have to start someone, and you have to start Malik Washington in your lineup. And obviously Burden's on a bye. But no, I think Burden's better rest of season. Marvin says Kamara or Metcalf for Bijan or Taylor. Yes. The answer is yes. If you can get either one, I would trade Kamara and Metcalf for Bijan or Taylor in a heartbeat. If you have access to getting both of them, then it just comes down to your personal preference on the season. Who do you like more? I would probably lean Bijan because of what he does as a pass catcher. Taylor's no slouch either. I mean, Taylor can just be the guy you need on any given week. Also has probably less competition for touches in his backfield. So I personally probably still lean Bijan slightly, but I get it if you're more interested in Taylor. And if you're in full PPR, then I'm going to say Bijan, but otherwise the toss up, whoever you like. But make that trade if you can get it. Yeah, this could be true. I have to look more into it. I just think of there's pieces on the Minnesota offense that I like more. There's Justin Jefferson, Addison, Hawkinson, Jordan Mason, all of those guys I think are generally superior in every position group to the guys you get in New England. Hunter Henry's been doing well though, right? Yeah, it's true. I feel that. Ken Walker or Breece Hall in standard. By standard, I mean standard. Yeah, I know what that means. It means no points per reception, which is why you might consider Ken Walker over Breece. I've got Ken Walker in my home league. It's half PPR. He had the 19 attempts, against Arizona Cardinals. Actually, a pretty good run stop defense. He didn't hit the touchdown, but he had a nice little reception as well. So Ken Walker had some nice yardage in the last week. He's had 3 touchdowns this season, looking pretty good when he's been active, when he's healthy, playing half the snaps. Versus Breece, who also just had a nice game, but more kind of yardage based there. Hasn't gotten any touchdowns this season, which is kind of concerning and limiting him. Breece against Dallas, though, seems like a really good spot versus Ken Walker and the Seahawks going up against Tampa Bay is just kind of an okay spot. So I think I'm a slight lean to Breece. Although he doesn't have the touchdowns, I think it's a spot you want to be in against the Cowboys to potentially have his first big game of the year. And the utilization's there. I think he has less competition for touches in his backfield. We just saw Braylon Allen go down with the injury. It just comes down to, is Justin Fields going to hog the ball for himself and scramble for another touchdown? Or are they going to hand it off to Breece and get that same touchdown? Seattle's pretty strong though, but the Jets, they're not completely hopeless. They, put up a fight against Miami at least. Frizz asks, would you start Keon Coleman over Darius Slayton and Malik Washington? For me, yes. I'm still in on Keon Coleman over both of those guys. Brian likes Slayton. I'm not a huge Slayton guy, I will say. Even with Malik Neighbors out, I've not been big into Slayton. Malik Neighbors or Tyreek Hill rest of season? I think that's a great question. But I'm going to actually say, what you should do? I would trade Malik Neighbors or Tyreek Hill for... Give me Joe Mixon. Let's get a Joe Mixon for one of those guys. I think that's a good deal. Yeah, James Conner. Oh, damn. That's what I was searching for. I was searching for James Conner. I was reaching into the bag, searching for a name. It was James Conner that I was looking for. Yeah, see if you can trade Malik Neighbors for James Conner. I think that'd be a good, fair trade. Okay, Frizzle's got Jawan Johnson. Nice. Should I look to pick up Waller or stick with Jawan? Stick with Jawan. Stick with Jawan. He's getting the usage. It's a high volume offense. It kind of runs through the passing game. And I think Jawan Johnson's a critical piece. Waller got lucky on touchdowns. Is that going to happen every week? No. Can the Dolphins suck? Yes. Are they going to be worse without Tyreek Hill? Yes. They're going to convert less third downs, less fourth downs. They're going to be less efficient driving the ball down the field. Will Waller have some red zone opportunities? Yeah. And does he look like he can capitalize on it? Sure. I would still want Jawan Johnson. I don't think the Dolphins are so much of a better team than the Saints that you're going to want, one tight end over the other just because of the offensive situation. There should also be more targets to go around with the Saints. And Jawan Johnson is getting some elite usage, even though he's had a down week. Yo, what's up, Neil? How we doing, brother? Hope you're having a good night. Where's Bindles? Yeah, we had to do I didn't even mention it yet. We had to do a little rain check. I had a late bedtime with the kiddos. Bindles had some stuff he had to take care of tonight as well. So we will be having our ballsy breakdown show soon. Very soon. We're dying to get back out here and talk ball with the bros, but we had to pivot tonight. So just me tonight. But we'll get Bindles out here soon. We got to check in with Bindles. We got to see, how's his workout routine's been going, what he's been eating, how's his diet going, all these hard hitting questions we want answers to. We need to see Bindles' face on stream very soon. Yeah, have you considered a different league? If Waller can start producing like Johnny from last year, oh man. This is also kind of a fair point. Braylon missing multiple weeks. Yeah, that's partially why I'm also leaning Brees. Maybe they just start to use him a lot more. Thanks for being here, Neil. Hope you're having a great night, brother. The OG home league, been it over half my life. I love it. Hartman, remember just giving you hell. Yeah, Hames and Hartman, the two most sarcastic men in the chat that could possibly be. And then on stream, they're just honestly almost too nice. No, but love to get the banter in the chat going. Okay, so standard, low-key the best format. Because you're giving it. Hames is giving you shit the fact that you're in a standard league. Some people are in leagues where it's like touchdowns only, and I think that's pretty crazy, but could be also very fun. Yeah, the touchdown variance in the standard leagues is insane. I remember my home league when we first started it back in high school. It was standard, and you just drafted like all running backs, and you just were looking for those guys to hit pay dirt, right? We'll take you. Yeah, you have no choice. We're doing chat Q&A. We're talking waivers. We're talking sit, start, rest of season outlook. And then I'm going to put some data together live on stream for some primetime paloozas. And maybe we'll draft a couple primetime paloozas. Could be fun tonight. If the primetime hurry up is released, that could be one we get into a few times as well. Frizzle says, would you drop Ollie Gordon for Kendre Miller or Kenneth Gainwell? I own Woody Marks and Blake Corum. I think you're good with your handcuffs with Blake Corum and Ollie Gordon. But if you would prefer Kendre Miller, it's kind of a lateral move. Kenneth Gainwell, I think similar. The fact that Kenneth Gainwell is on a bye this week, like if you need a guy to start in your flex, he's on a bye, right? But if you're just going to stash someone, I think it's fine. Jalen Warren is going to come back healthy at some point. So I think Gainwell's value goes down there, but then he's kind of on the same level as like a Kendre Miller, Ollie Gordon. But at least we've already seen him get it done. So there's a little bit more there on the Gainwell side. But if you're just looking for bench stashes, I kind of do like Ollie Gordon. If you need to start someone now, might lean Kendre Miller, but it's close. Yes, this is tough. It is tough to fit in around the gym schedule, no doubt. 40% Brees in the Wildcat. Nice. Touchdown only, but scaled by distance of touchdown. Talk about variance. That's crazy. So like Jalen Hurts takes a hit there where he's just pushing in 1 yard touchdowns, doesn't get as many points. Who would play in a league like that? Yeah, y'all are wild. Speaking of, let's roll the Genty clip in honor of the Genty breakout. I'm gonna let the dog out. I'll be right back in 25 seconds, and then we're gonna look at some data and get into the primetime slate games. I need to go back and look at the highlights because when Genty popped off this week, did he ever hit the Macarena? Did anybody take note? Because these are the things that I'm supposed to be keeping tabs on. We've been waiting for it all season. Finally, we had a multi-touchdown game from Ashton Genty. He has 3 touchdowns, 2 through the air on 2 receptions. added 17 yards through the air, 21 carries, 138 rushing yards, good for 6.6 yards per carry, averaging about 7 yards per touch. And he's the RB1 on the week. So for all the haters out there that thought just some mountain whack conference player couldn't get it done, too small, offense not good, offensive line not good enough, getting tackled behind the line of scrimmage, who gets the last laugh now? It only took 4 weeks, but we get the guy. We drafted Ashton Genty, a first round pick, an RB1 going forward. Finally, we're here. So I got to do some digging. Let me know in the chat if you watched the Raiders game in more detail than I was able to gather. Did he hit the Macarena at any given point? Because if he did, I'm going to have to update my clip and bring in. I already have to update the clip at some point this in season for Genty. We have so many new highlights. Same thing with Scattaboo. So many new Scattaboo highlights. We're looking for some new T-Mac highlights. There's been some all right ones, but we need to get some better ones. But if I can get a new Genty Macarena, that might be good enough to make it the intro. And then shout out to Quinshon Judkins too, beating his case and not getting into legal trouble and already being a star through the last 2 games and through 4 weeks. So luckily I didn't have to change the intro too much there, but I was worried for a minute. Does Jaden Blue earn a job this week? God, I really hope so, don't you? I mean, we've got a lot of money saying that we hope Jaden Blue does play this week. Let's see. Miles Sanders goes down. Jaden Blue steps up. Let's get a big week out of him. Let's have a Jaden Blue takeover. I mean, is this the week in our home leagues to pick up Jaden Blue sneakily before he pops off? Kind of, maybe. Genty is good. Hashtag good, no doubt. Genty or Mostert rest of season? I think it's a coin flip. I mean, we've seen Mostert have 18 touchdowns in a season, whatever it was, 18 touchdowns. And he honestly had a big, I think it was a reception, but he had a nice big play there too. So Genty, Mostert, I mean, if you could trade Genty, get Mostert and another piece, I think I would do that. Dylan Laube. Yeah, Dylan Laube had a pretty good catch. I think it was week 2, maybe it was week 1. People really took old man Saquon over Genty. You hate to see it. Sharpman. Hey, what's up, Meg? How we doing? Hope you're having a great Tuesday night. Thanks for stopping in. All right, I'll be just right back to close the door. The dog came back in, but the door's wide open. I got to go close it. And then let's talk some primetime Palooza slates and draft some underdog teams. Be back in 1 second. What do you guys think about this question for James? Let me know in the chat what you think we should do on this one for James. I'm going to be right back in 10 seconds. Okay, so James says, should I start Drake or Geno this week? Tough decision. You got Drake May against the Buffalo Bills. You got Geno Smith and the Raiders versus the Indianapolis Colts. Hey, appreciate the kind words, my man. And thanks for stopping in. Peace. Later, Brian. Catch you later, my man. Who Haim says Drake May. I'm feeling Drake May. I think, yeah, let's go Drake May. Geno's kind of been up and down. Let's go Drake May for a fun game against the Bills on the Sunday Night Football matchup too. So let's do that. Goddard or Kincaid? I think you could go either. The Eagles are playing the Broncos. I don't see that as a necessarily good matchup. I see that as kind of a tough matchup. Not the worst. The Broncos don't allow a whole lot of passing touchdowns. They've allowed 2 passing touchdowns through 4 weeks. That doesn't seem like a good spot to try to get, a Goddard touchdown, but Kincaid against the Patriots. Kincaid's been on a hot streak. I think I have a slight lean to Kincaid there, but I'm a big fan of Goddard, and we just saw what he could do, in week 4, so that is a tough one. Yeah, appreciate it. Captain Clutchpants says, "Thoughts on another trade in my second league? We got Nico Collins for Brian Thomas Jr. Oh, and Brian Thomas Jr. for Jackson Smith and Jigba and Roy McMillan, 12-man full PPR." That's tough. It's so hard to do 2 wide receivers for 2 wide receivers. Nico Collins and Brian Thomas Jr. for Jackson Smith and Jigba and Roy McMillan, full PPR, 12-man. I kind of am tempted to go for JSN and Roy McMillan. This is redraft, right? So I'm tempted to go that way. They At the same time, it could be Brian Thomas and Nico, like, no doubt. This is tough. I think it's pick your 2 favorite guys. Yeah, and for redraft, I think it's pick your 2 favorite guys. I'm probably gonna slightly lean to the Nico Collins side, but we've seen what Jason's done through 4 weeks. It's been pretty good. And T-Mac getting more and more usage going forward. The problem is, Bryce Young. Problem with BTJ is Trevor Lawrence and apparently his wrist. So last week they benched him fourth quarter, only had 23 points. I could have had 40-point game, but at least I won the week. Nice. Yeah, I see what you're saying there. All right, let's get into some data here. This is what I put together last week for the primetime Palooza slate. I'm gonna bring in some data, just some basic stuff from the primetime slate we have going forward. First off, we have the matchup: San Francisco 49ers, the Los Angeles Los Angeles Rams, and then we have the Sunday morning game: Minnesota Vikings, Cleveland Browns, followed up with the Sunday night game, New England Patriots, and Buffalo Bills. So let's jump into some of this team data here. Very basic stuff here. Boom, team. We're going to grab San Francisco and their opponents through the first 4 weeks. And then go back to the Google Sheet. Put this in here. Boom, there's one. Let's go back and get the Rams data. So what I'm doing here, I'm putting together data on, how these teams have performed and on offense and what they've allowed to their opponents through the first 4 weeks, through the first 4 games. I'm putting this in a spreadsheet so that I can compare and get some averages across all of these teams and their opponents, and to see kind of where things lie. Which teams have a plus matchup either against them in their defense or their offense is higher in scoring. I've got some things flagged here. I've got some averages. I'm looking for who's the best. I'm starting to call things out so I can make some decisions around which game environments I might want to target for these primetime slate games. All right, next up is Minnesota. They just had a big win, a big loss, actually. They had a big loss in their primetime matchup against the Browns. Or no, against the Steelers. Jeez. Multitasking, obviously. Okay, let's get Cleveland. So this game's going to be in London. Steelers are on a wait. Why do I have Cleveland here? Yeah, week 4. We're in week 5. Yeah, Minnesota, Cleveland in London. I was thinking back because the Steelers are on a bye. I got psyched myself out there. I was like, part of me remembered that I think it's just in all of these Monday night games, they were still talking about the Steelers being in Ireland and the Rooney family and stuff. It's like, enough. It's not that cool of a connection. It is cool they played in Dublin, Ireland, but does anyone really care about the Steelers that much? I don't know. Okay. So we've got 2 games in here so far, 4 teams. We have 2 more teams to go. The last matchup, it's the Sunday night game, the New England Patriots against the Buffalo Bills in Buffalo. Once we put this data together, then we will dig into it a little bit and start to highlight some things. Last matchup here, the Buffalo Bills. So this is not like sophisticated data. This is nothing crazy. It's literally just how good is your offense? How good is your defense at stopping opposing offenses? And then how can we use that data to be somewhat predictive of the game environment that we might find ourselves in for week 5 when the teams are playing each other in these small slates. So let's go ahead. We'll do a little. Whoops. A highlight here. And then let me grab these. Boom. Okay. I think we're formatted. I think we're good. I'll go ahead and I think I can make this bigger. Yeah, that helps a little bit. Shift it over a little bit like this. Do that. Maybe we can just look at these like one at a time anyways, or a few at a time. I think this is big enough. Maybe one size bigger. Like that is a little bit better. Let me go ahead and pull this over here. Okay, I think that's going to be good because then I can scroll down and we can still read what's in these, what's in this. And then I can make these smaller actually. Yeah, that helps. A little smaller. Okay. There we go. Perfect. Let's get into it. Yeah, what's up, Binking? How we doing, brother? Hope you're having a good Tuesday night. Saying what up to the chat. Rattlers having a 3 touchdown game incoming. And it's going to be against the New York Giants, actually. Maybe. All right. So for the primetime Palooza, it is a tournament on Underdog where you can only draft players from the primetime game. Sometimes it's a 2-game slate. Some weeks, like last week and this week, it's a 3-game slate. So this week we have access to the Thursday night game, the Sunday morning game in London, and the Sunday night game. They're 4-person drafts. There's 6 players drafted. You have to draft 1 quarterback and only 1 quarterback. You get 1 tight end spot you have to draft, 2 wide receivers you have to draft, 1 running back you have to draft, and you have a flex that could be a running back, a wide receiver, or a tight end. So there's 6 rounds, 4 people, 24 players drafted. Because we have 3 games, we're going to have 6 quarterbacks to pick from. So 2 quarterbacks will go undrafted in each draft. We've got Brock Purdy or Mac Jones. We don't really know yet. That's pretty much an avoid situation. We have Matthew Stafford, Carson Wentz. We have Dylan Gabriel, Drake May, and Josh Allen. So clearly in this format, Josh Allen will be the 101, the first player drafted overall, almost certainly. And sometimes that can be a good tactic. Sometimes you kind of want to play late QB. We also have some uncertainty around, is Brock Purdy going to play? For the running backs, we've got McCaffrey is a clear top player, probably a top 4 drafted player easily. Kyron is probably a second rounder. Mason against the Browns probably goes in the second round. Quinshon Judkins is probably a second round pick. So there's a lot of running backs we think could go in the second round. Ramondre Stevenson probably goes in the third. Travion Henderson probably goes in the 4th or 5th round. James Cook probably goes in the first round. For the wide, and this is before I look at the ADPs, this is before I look at the rankings and everything, but I'm just going off the top of my head what I think is going to happen. For the wide receivers, there's a lot of players who could be out. We could have Ricky Pearsall out. We could have Juwan Jennings possibly out, like Who Hames is saying. So there's some things to figure out there. With that, what do we do with the San Francisco wide receiver room? That's concerning. For the Rams, it's obvious. It's Puka. He's going to be a first-round pick. So I think the first round is going to look like Josh Allen, James Cook, Christian McCaffrey, and Puka Nacua in some order in about every draft. We then are going to think about, Tutu as a flex, maybe as a scroll-down guy. For the Minnesota Vikings, I think Justin Jefferson also would be going in the second round, maybe the 2-3 turn at worst. Addison should be going around the 4th or 5th round, kind of a later pick. And that's about it for them. You could scroll down for Naylor or Thielen, but I wouldn't really recommend it with a slate this wide, this deep with the 6 teams, 3 games. For Cleveland, you can go, we know Tillman's out, but you can go Jerry Jeudy. He's probably going around pick 20 or so, 4th, 5th round. And then you could also pivot to a deep scroll for a guy like Isaiah Bond is kind of interesting there. For the New England Patriots, they don't even know who their top receiver is. They pick a different guy every week. Diggs will probably be going around where Judy goes, but you have Stephon Diggs. You could take Demario Douglas, who still has a big role in the offense, but isn't playing a whole lot and isn't catching a whole lot of balls. Kayshon Boutte is another option there. For Buffalo, Khalil Shakir had a nice game, had a touchdown, or Keon Coleman. You also could go Josh Palmer, but I think he's getting outplayed right now. The tight end situation, Kittle out, so it's the Tongas for the 49ers. Do you want to take him or leave him off the board, off your draft board as being like, the 5th or 6th tight end? I think it's possible. For the Rams, do you take Higbee? Probably not. Do you go Ferguson or Allen? Probably not. So that's also another avoid tight end situation. Minnesota has Hawkinson. He's going to be the 3rd best tight end, 4th best tight end in this slate kind of idea. So he's definitely getting drafted all the time, but might be last that gets drafted. I think he does potentially go either 3rd or 4th. You could argue either Fannin or Njoku, both very draftable. Maybe Fannin as the 3rd guy, Njoku as the 4th, 5th. For New England, you have Hunter Henry, who's had some big weeks. I think he is the 2nd overall tight end, and then Kincaid probably the 1st. But I think the tight ends could get moved around a little bit. So that's kind of my first take on all of the players that should get drafted, could get drafted in this format. And before I go into ADP, kind of my blind assumption about where I would take them all and my rankings on them. Yeah. Just fade San Francisco completely. It's hard if you I mean, I don't know how many teams I'm gonna draft for this tournament this week. I usually do about 10 to 20, but if you fade a team completely, it can really hurt you. I faded Waller in all but one of my drafts last week, and he was the tight end you needed. So it's hard. Yeah, is this a Demarcus Robinson week? Is this the week that he breaks the slate? I don't know that he can necessarily break a slate. I'd have to go back and look at his career games. Like, has he ever had a game with 2 touchdowns or 3 touchdowns? So, like, could he break the slate as a flex? I think there's a very low possibility, but I wouldn't rule it out completely. Bond was a big participant in the route share. I think that he's kind of a sneaky play in all formats going forward. Definitely fun for Dynasty. Dylan Gabriel, short king. Tight ends, aka middle of the field, might not be a good target. Interesting. Some of that Kyler Murray kind of assumption on the short king status. The Minnesota team total looks kind of high. For their total points per game, yeah, they've been scoring a bunch, right? Are you looking at the actual team total here? Because it's 36.5 over under with Minnesota minus 3.5, so it shouldn't be that high. Pretty low. But one thing we can look at that I'll start to get when getting with the data, and I'll actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and freeze. Let me go ahead and freeze the column so that we can really focus in on one game at a time. Let me freeze this one. Well, that had the complete opposite effect of what I wanted. Whatever. Whatever. Yeah, I thought I remember Demarcus Robinson having a pretty big game with the Rams. That's right. I know he'd done it at least once, so he could be a slate breaker. You do have to draft more than 0% of him if you're going to draft like 20 teams, maybe even 10 teams. Yeah. So this is what they're averaging. So through the first 4 games, Minnesota's averaging 25.5 points per game. So this would be them going up against Cleveland, who supposedly is a pretty good defense. But look, the 4 teams that have played Cleveland have averaged 25.5 points per game. So kind of going up against Cleveland, they've allowed 12 touchdowns. That's kind of a lot. Uh, compared to the average of these teams being 10.7 touchdowns that they score, allowing 12 would be a lot. So I'm taking the average of the 6 teams that are playing, but not of against, the scoring against them. So I'm averaging what these teams can do. And so allowing 12 touchdowns, the Cleveland Browns defense is allowed by far the most touchdowns among these defenses. Only Buffalo scored 16, and New England's actually scored 13 touchdowns, come even close to that 12. I guess the Rams have 11, but still. Yeah, if you remove that Bengals game, what does Minnesota look like? That's a good question. Yeah, these are actual stats. So these are actual stats, both for and then versus these teams. Yeah, what's up, Nino? How we doing, brother? Need some help with this wide receiver core still. Lost neighbors this week, so I'm looking rough. You got Jacoby Myers, Alec Ayomanor, and Diggs left standing. Would you send McCaffrey for Hampton plus T-Mac? I don't know. What do you guys think in the chat? I don't think I want to give up McCaffrey. Even though Hampton's looking good and T-Mac's looking good, I don't know. If you really, really need the wide receiver help, because like you said, Neighbors is out, that's tough. There's probably not a whole lot on your waivers if Alec Ayomanor and Diggs and Jacoby Myers are your 3 guys. It comes down to, would you rather roll with McCaffrey plus those 3 or Hampton plus Jacoby and Diggs plus T-Mac over LKO Manor. So what's the step down from McCaffrey to Hampton versus Tedroy McMillan to Ao Manor? It's kind of a bigger step down to go to Ellick. So this might be close depending on your team need. What do you guys think in the chat that Nino should do? Yeah, this is true. Maybe Minnesota because their defense is good. Can Gabriel get it all figured out and actually like be competent, or does he have some turnovers that pops up? Allows Minnesota to have some easier scores, maybe even some defensive scores, special team scores. Minnesota's only averaging 18 points per game against the non-Cincy teams. Yeah, I mean they went off against Cincinnati, right? So if we look at that, they put up 48 against the Bengals. So that's really going to skew the data when you only have a sample size of 4 games to look at. So that's good to note from Who Hames. Also, they have Carson Wentz now, so there's like some differences there about what's going on in their quarterback situation. And they're, how many points is their defense going to score? Try getting Franklin or Judy with it, but depth is bad as well. Gotcha. Your opponent, yeah, his depth was bad. Yeah, actually, banking is actually pretty close with that then. Yeah, what's up, David? How we doing? We got I am the key here. I am the key. I am the KY says Xavier Scott usage on passing downs was wild. Dude's a slot receiver that occasionally carries. That's what I thought too. I was actually pretty surprised by that, but you just know it's the game script, right? So that game script was they were always playing from behind, chasing the Vikings against the Steelers last week in Dublin, Ireland. So chalk it up to that. I think I'm still bullish on Mason the rest of the season, although they are facing the Cleveland Browns this week. And versus Cleveland, this is what we'll look at. Opponents have 100 rushing attempts, 104 to be exact. The average of all of our 6 teams in the primetime slates is 107 rushing attempts, so slightly below average, but our teams have averaged 445 rushing yards, which is probably a little bit high just because we have guys like McCaffrey, James Cook, in the slate, but 4.2 yards per rush, 111 rushing yards per game, and 3.7 rushing touchdowns in total across 4 games. Cleveland's only given up 281 rushing yards, 2.7 yards per attempt, literally the lowest in the league, 70 rushing yards per game, super low, 2 rushing touchdowns, also very, very low. Only the Seahawks have allowed 0, have done better. So I think it's a bad week to be Jordan Mason for fantasy, but you might not have an option, and he might still be flex worthy with the yardage he can get to. Maybe he can get to 80, 90 yards, and then a small chance that he does score. Or let's imagine that Dylan Gabriel fumbles or throws an interception and puts Minnesota right into a goal line or a red zone situation early enough that Jordan Mason's on the field and can convert that to a touchdown, which against this Browns defense doesn't seem very likely, but is possible. But these are the kind of things I'm looking at in the data that we're going to highlight and go through that we're looking at in this slate. So that's kind of why I put this data together for these primetime paloozas, just to give me kind of a sense of what's going on. It's not anything super like crazy detailed, but it at least allows me to figure out if there's anything to take advantage of or like any obvious tough spots to be in or good spots to be in with the matchups. Let me do that. David wants to know, how's Joe Alt's health? I haven't heard anything since. I mean, I could look. Let me see. Let me pop into the Discord real quick and look at the Los Angeles Chargers Coach Speak Index. Today at 8 p.m. from Jim Harbaugh, Joe Alt is dealing with an ankle and it's getting imaging right now. So that doesn't sound great. Omarion Hampton's performance was elite. You could just watch him get in the rhythm of the game. Special. He continues to grow and get better in so many ways. Outstanding player. But we already knew that Jim Harbaugh loves Amari Hampton. So that quote's not that different, not that game changing for us to know. But yeah, Joe Alt dealing with the ankle and getting imaging right now. That's tough. That could be a big hit for the Chargers, right? Hartman's in. Hartman's open to getting Hampton and Tedroy McMillan for McCaffrey. I think it's close. Min 18.5, Cleveland 16.5, what I got. I think that's also probably a pretty good bet. Yeah, literally just Malik Washington, Bond, Slayton, Tolbert, but I don't feel confident using number one priority on any of them. So I wouldn't use my number one priority on any of those guys. I would try to get one or two of them for free to give you some depth and give you some options. Tolbert could be fine. I'm not super in on Slayton. I honestly, Slayton's fine. The opportunity might be there, but I just don't even know if he's like, what is the passing volume going to be with Dart to begin with, and then what is Slayton's upside at his current age and what he's been able to put together lately. He hasn't had a big game in quite a while. Yeah, Cleveland defense is pretty elite. Yo, what's up, Swabby? How we doing, brother? Hope you're having a good Tuesday. Roster 2, rest of season. If you had to have 2 on your team tomorrow and leave others on waiver wire, not starting any, mostly just stashes. Okay. So we're going to roster 2 rest of season and leave the rest of them on waiver wire. We have Justice Hill, Kendre Miller, Sean Tucker, and Braylon Allen. Give me Justice Hill and Kendre Miller. I'm going to leave Sean Tucker and Braylon Allen. Contingent on Bucky Irving actually playing. If Bucky Irving misses time, I think it could be close between Justice Hill and Sean Tucker. I just think Rachaad White holds down the majority of the touches. We saw what Sean Tucker could do when he got the ball and got the opportunity last season. I just don't know if we can trust what's the reliability of understanding like when to start Sean Tucker, when he's going to go off like that. It's hard to predict. So in managed leagues, I'd want Kendre Miller and Justice Hill rest of season. Yeah, it is. This is a pretty ugly slate for wide receiver outside of Minnesota and the Los Angeles Rams. I would say so too. Yeah, if Joe Alt's out several weeks, do not trade for Hampton. Is kind of what David's feeling. Could be a big hit for them. Puka is number 1 in Showdown. Swabby's got $63 left on Fab, and Woody Marks is on waivers. Full load drop. I think everyone in the chat's going to say yes, and I will just go ahead along with that. And I will say go ahead, unless there's anything you need to particularly save for $1, 1 or 2 later. You could also look to see like, does anyone in your league have $65, $70, and they're also going to unload? You might as well just do your whole amount, hoping that you win. But if they're going to outplay you, they'll just put 64. So it won't really, you either get them or you don't kind of thing. I don't think doing 60. Here's the thing. Actually, I take that back. Look to see if anyone in your league only has 60 or only has 59 or only has 61. It's like the Price is Right strategy. Just do $1 above their bid, their max bid. Because if someone has 100 or 70 and they unload on to get Woody Marks, they're going to just do $1 more than you if they're smart. So for you doing your whole amount, it's only effective if there's other players that are like right there with you that also have like 60 or 62. If the next highest person that's not more than you but has less than you is like at 45, maybe just go 46. If you think the guy with $100 is going to get cute and put in, 50 or 51, maybe just try to aim around there, 52. So those are just my 2 cents, my kind of thoughts on what you could do there. But I think people are going to say to put all your fab in general. Yeah, whole offense, Chargers could struggle without Joe Alt. That's not a small loss. Yeah, I know what you meant. I know what you meant. Prime time. That makes sense to me. I thought maybe Josh Allen would go 101, but Puka 101 makes sense. QBs are a little bit undervalued in this format. Yeah, whichever of the five New England wide receivers hits, watch it be Mac Hollins scoring 2 touchdowns. Slater and out. Slater and Alt out is a bad O line now. Actually, yeah, I like where David's coming from. Kind of writing this narrative for what's it going to look like for the Chargers going forward. It could be really bad. No, I'm not worried about Puka getting hurt. I don't think so. The dude watches LeBron James highlights before every game. He'll play through it. Got that dog in him. True. Yeah, Woody Marks full load drop. That's that if he's available, I think that's what everyone's kind of thinking consensus wise. I don't he's not available in any of my leagues, so I'm not tuned in to like what he might be going for, what I might be bidding on him. I kind of tuned that out a little bit this week. Hey, appreciate you, Swabby. Thanks for being here. Then this is something it is the Texans. They are a bad offensive line. They were playing the Titans, but there's some more facts for us to figure out. Yeah, David dropping knowledge for us. Woody Marks and half point had more fantasy points than Saquon or Gibbs has had all season. So crazy. I mean, what a breakout game, right? 2 touchdowns to do that. Yo, what's up, Jonathan? How we doing, brother? Do I look to see if I can trade Chase Brown for Trey Benson? I don't know. Personally, for me, I don't know if I'm there yet, but let's see what the chat thinks. The Bengals situation couldn't be worse. The Cardinals are also kind of underwhelming. Trey Benson seems like the logical guy there. They just brought back in Michael Carter, and DeMarcado poached a touchdown. It was a receiving touchdown, but he still got one. Benson somewhat efficient. He's never really handled the load. Obviously, James Conner's out. Chase Brown, very volume dependent, very dependent on Joe Burrow being the engine of the offense going forward. So I could see most people siding with Trey Benson on this one. I don't know if I'm there. What's up, James? How we doing, brother? In full point per reception league, would you trade away running back Jordan Mason for Lad McConkey and any long-term upside? Thanks in advance. That's tough. I think you could say yes, you'd rather have Lad McConkey. You could also argue you just want the touchdowns, the rushing yardage for Mason. Is going to come down to team need. Do you need a wide receiver? Do you need the running back? If these are both going to hit your flex, in full PPR, I might lean McConkey just on what we expect, what we know, his talent, the ability for Justin Herbert to throw for 40, 500, 5,000 yards, a lot of touchdowns. Justin Herbert set the rookie record for 31 touchdowns in a season. All of these things, the Chargers are kind of a fun team at the same time. Looking like Joe Alt could be hurt. Rashawn Slater's out. So I love Jordan Mason. I'm going to do a slight lean to Lad McConkey. What do you guys think in the chat? Yeah, since the offense is cooked, go for Benson. I think that's kind of the consensus right now. Benson also hurt, also true. Swabby says you could probably get more for Chase Brown, but they're pretty even. That's where I'm at. Can you get more? D. Henry Light. He will do well when Arizona's up, and if they're trailing, he's going to lose snaps. For Trey Benson, that's a pretty good analysis right there on it. Hold Chase Brown through this week. Maybe he gets some garbage time. The Giants, or not the Giants. The Bengals are facing Detroit, so could be an interesting script. Lad side, but it's risky. We expect so much out of Lad, though. Yeah, the free agent acquisition budget is in my opinion way more fun than waivers. but I like using it too. That's kind of how I felt Who Hames about Benson. I feel like you might not get Kendra unless people hold on to their waiver this week. Yeah, it's going to be so touchdown dependent, kind of like it was last year, but even more so now. So Chase Brown, Jamar Chase. I think the whole Bengals offense, we got to sell low. Yeah, oh man, it's getting bad. Okay, let's jump into the data here. I'm going to zoom in a bit. Well, that was not actually any at all. Let's look at this first matchup. It's the Rams and the 49ers. Let me go ahead and hide this. Okay, so the Rams and the 49ers on Thursday night for this slate. Well, actually, I want to look at all of it. Let me undo what I just did. Because I forgot. There's one last thing I want to do. I want to go through. I want to go through this and put a highlight on the best in each situation. So I'm already highlighting in the red is where they're below average. The green is above average for certain things. Then I like to go and highlight the top team. So Buffalo is the top scoring team. No surprise there. Let's do light blue. Buffalo's our top scoring team and also has the most touchdowns. For first downs, it's also Buffalo. Rushing first downs is Buffalo. Passing first downs is actually San Francisco with 61. So San Francisco is actually passing the ball the most to get their first downs, or they just have the most first downs in general outside of Buffalo. Well, yeah, no, only 19 rushing first downs. So interesting. The only reason I look at first downs is because it kind of gives an idea of game flow and what they're doing and the opportunities and who's converting that. So nothing crazy there, but same thing with the third down percentage and how they're converting that. I don't look at it too much, but it could be interesting to know if there's any big discrepancies there. Scrolling down here, the net passing yards per game. San Francisco is the clear leader in net passing yards per game, followed by the Rams are actually behind them. After that, it's going to be the Bills and the Patriots. So out of our 6 teams, they're averaging 234 net passing yards per game. Opponents of the Bills are only averaging 125. That's actually really low. Passing touchdowns, the average is 6.5, but San Francisco has 8. The Rams have 8. And the Bills and the Patriots have 7 each. Interceptions, Cleveland. I think, yeah, Cleveland's thrown the most interceptions. Rushing attempts, it's going to be Buffalo having the most rushing attempts. No surprise there between Josh Allen and James Cook. We've also got Buffalo. Actually, verse is a surprise. And I love to see it when it's verse a team because then we get to kind of target certain matchups. Buffalo's defense is giving up 6 yards per rush attempt. So that's the highest by far, where the average is 4.2 among our teams. So this could be like a slight plus matchup for Ramondre Stevenson and Travion Henderson. Actually, a big plus matchup because The Buffalo Bills are also allowing 164 rushing yards per game against them. Their defense is allowing more rushing yards than their offense is generating. So that's kind of a key insight there. This is actually, and then it's not like the Patriots are like that terrible. They're getting 101 rushing yards per game compared to the 6-team slate average of 111. So Patriots aren't that far behind, but it's a plus rushing matchup for them. The Bills have also given up the most rushing touchdowns with 5. Or no, sorry. There, I finally got one wrong. That is the Bills, and this is obvious, have scored the most rushing touchdowns with 9. What did I just do? Which is completely obvious. We have the 49ers have still not scored a rushing touchdown. The average is 3.7 among these 6 teams, either 3 or 4 for everyone else. Total offensive plays. The 49ers have run the most plays, and Buffalo is averaging the most yards per game with 412. They're only allowing 300 yards per game. So that's their defense. The Buffalo pass defense is looking super elite, and their run defense is really weak. So that's pretty interesting. There's still a bad matchup to go against for opposing offenses because of how good they are against the pass. It looks like. Otherwise, we just have the 49ers and the Rams being very close behind the Bills in terms of yards per game, total yards. They're generating it in different ways, though. It's the Rams being more balanced with their passing and their rushing attack. And then for the 49ers, a little bit weaker on the run side, only averaging 3.3 yards per attempt. That'll do it. So those are just some of the highlights that I like to make going through, thinking about the slate as a whole and what the teams are and which ones are overperforming, underperforming. I think my keynote takeaway for the 49ers and for the 49ers and the Rams, it's going to be like a shootout situation is what you might want for that environment. For the Minnesota Vikings and the Cleveland Browns, seems like a low-scoring defensive battle. And for the Patriots and the Bills, it seems like New England run game, Buffalo everything. Because the Patriots, they still allow a good amount of passing yards. They're a little bit stronger as a run defense. So maybe it's more of a we want those rushing touchdowns that New England's only given up 2. So New England's pretty stingy against the run. We're up this. It's a slight, and these aren't like what my not is. I'm not going to just go based on this, but generally, as I think about most of my takes, I'll account for a shootout, a low-scoring defensive battle, New England run game having a positive opportunity against this defense, and Buffalo passing, which seems like counterintuitive because you assume the Bills are going to be winning, and it might be a game script where the Bills are running it more and New England's passing more, but that's just not the way these defenses have matched up. Cool. So that essentially we've gone through it all. I think that's kind of some of the key insights, and I'll keep referring to this tonight, tomorrow, and Thursday before the Thursday slate. And then I think what will happen is these 2 games, or at least just I think it's just the Sunday night game, will roll into a primetime palooza with the Monday night game, which is going to be that Kansas City Chiefs at Jacksonville Jaguars. So this probably the second primetime palooza slate we get this week is just going to be those 2 games in a smaller slate. So we'll get to utilize these players and this information for this first primetime palooza slate. Let's get right into one. Yeah, CMC hasn't had the 70 rushing yards yet. Get a few more questions here. Um, Let me scroll up. Binking says JMO or Montgomery this week, 0.5 point per reception. I guess because they're going up against the Bengals, and you can really take advantage of them either on the ground or through the air. I might just say JMO, but I think Montgomery can also be a good play. We saw what RJ Harvey could do against the Bengals, right? Dobbins and RJ Harvey, Gibbs and Montgomery. So probably the safer play could be Montgomery, assuming he gets some like garbage time, run the clock out, run the ball. But I kind of like JMO's upside too. David has the exact same thought. David, a very sharp drafter, very smart guy. So feel good that we aligned on that one. Camaro to Arizona. That'd be interesting. Nice place to retire. Retirement community. Monty until JMO shows something. That this is true. Yeah, the whole Monty game script thing I think is accurate. Yeah, JMO's been close. JMO's still good. Yeah. He was looking outside. Goff threw inside. He turned around and kind of lost it. I did see that play in particular. James says, in full PPR league, your thoughts on the Bears running back, Kyle Monangai. I like him as a stash. I think he, is productive at Rutgers. Yes, he's a day 3 rookie running back. Swift has been fine, but also injured. So I think he's a stash. I don't know for a fact though, and he's on a bye right now. So it's kind of like a hold position on him, but I'm looking up right now on my phone. I want to see what exactly Swift did, because I know he ended up playing 66% of the snaps, 14 for 38, 6 targets, 4 receptions, 22 yards. He did get a touchdown. He got bailed out by the touchdown is what it was. Pretty inefficient, pretty bad. Monangai, what did he do? 28% of the snaps, 4 for 18. Looking efficient though. Did Roshan get a carry? No. Yeah, Roshan hasn't played. So interesting. I'm going to hold Monangai. I think he's got some interesting upside rest of season. There probably could be some good running backs on waivers. Yeah, that's fair. So we're thinking we trade Chase for Ladd and Judkins. I think we're all saying yes. Wow, Chase for Judkins straight up, which honestly, I think we're almost there too. Patriots have a good run defense. Yeah, I figured that one out. Yeah, I figured it out mid analysis. Hindi for leverage feels good in a 3-gamer. He could be. He'll still get drafted probably every draft or almost all of them. Fake talk. How we doing, brother? Just dropped Chase for Woody Marks. Chase Brown? Hindi lock if I'm playing it. Seems to be on pace for 132 receptions, like 1,200 yards. Cook plus Hindi feels good. Yeah. It's tough because, yeah, in these slates, any player that gets drafted 100% of the time, you want some exposure to, I think. I know that was crazy though, David, right? Like they really have not turned it over to Henderson, which is surprising to me. They have so much faith in Ramondre Stevenson. Let's see how much longer that'll last if he keeps fumbling, but he's still getting the work. Yeah, Antonio Gibson had that touchdown on his like limited snaps too, which was interesting. New England is splitting it up everywhere. The running back room, the tight end, the wide receiver. At least Hunter Henry's like consolidating or at least converting those opportunities though a little bit. Yeah, the second primetime Palooza will be fun. Back to a 2-game slate. Quorum a sleeper. Rams a smash. Jamar Chase. Dropping Jamar Chase for Woody Marks. I don't know if I'm there. But over the course of this stream tonight, these last 2 hours, I've kind of come around a little bit more. That's interesting. Let's draft a primetime Palooza or whatever. Maybe a primetime hurry up. Let me just see. Let me refresh and just see if they've got the hurry up in there. They have, of course, Wildcat, all that stuff. They have the regular hurry up. Yeah, this is the regular hurry up. I thought I saw them drop some tournaments today. Okay, there it is. There's the primetime Palooza, the primetime hurry up, the dive. So a $10, a $3, a $25. These tournament sizes are somewhat consistent to what we've been seeing week over week. I think these are about the same. Prime time to bomb for 100, but really low rake on this one, 7.4% rake. Only 216 entrants, so not the worst way to play it. And then I think the primetime playbook, I thought that was open too, and it might have already filled, unless I'm just looking right past it. Let's go ahead and do some hurry ups because I want to get a feel for the rooms, the ADP, what's going on. It's a $3 draft, 7,500 people entering into it. You get 2K for first. I think the highest I've finished in this so far this season is about 30th. Let me check the payout because that'll let me know. Yeah, I hit one for 30th. I've hit a few in the top 100 or top 200, top 150. I've had some $20 payouts. I've had some 70. I have not broken into a top 10 yet. So getting a top 10 in one of these is the goal. Trying to win it. Let's do this prime time hurry up on Underdog. Yay, later, Whohames. Whohames and I, and with Hartman, we're going to be streaming tomorrow night here on the channel. Looking forward to that. Talking everything week 5 main slate and ball and more Q&A with the chat. Thanks for being here, Whohames. Always good to see my man. Great stream earlier too. Yeah, I would say don't drop Jamar Chase. Yeah. Yeah, I would start Jamar Chase over Stephon Diggs still. I feel like that's kind of chasing the week 4 results a little bit. All right. Hey, we got David in here. David is up. David's getting into these drafts. I'm going to go big screen like this because there's not much to see. And then the board is just like this. So we'll go super zoomed in. Whohames was trying to tell me that Puka was the 101. Maybe that was his own personal opinion, which I also think is very fair and could be right. But I see McCaffrey here at the ADP 1.5. I forget how often they refresh the primetime Palooza slates. The primetime slates, I think they refresh it like once or twice a day, maybe 3 times a day. I honestly don't know. It's more than once a day because I've seen the ADPs updating in the past tournaments. I'm in the 2 spot. I'm going to think this one through. If I don't take Josh Allen, how do I get there at quarterback? I think you can get there a number of ways, but there's some limited options. I am going to go Puka here. Obviously go Puka. And then quarterback, I'm not going to be drafting Flacco or Gabriel very much at all. Gabriel. Some Wentz is fine. A little bit worried about Purdy and his questionable tag with the foot. Didn't practice today. That would be a pivot to Mac Jones, but I feel like that's something you could do later. So Josh Allen, Drake May, and Stafford are the obvious top three, and then you'd wait for a late Wentz. I'm gonna go Judkins there. I think the matchup against Minnesota is actually decent for the run game, like we just saw with Kenny Gainwell. Yeah, and that's the problem. Then I miss out on Drake May, who I kind of wanted. And I don't have Justin Jefferson, so now playing Winslater is a little bit riskier, especially because the Cleveland defense we think is good. I feel like I need to go freaking Stafford here so I don't get locked out of QB. I think everyone else is pretty much up in the air. So I'm going to go Stafford because it makes my team for me. Where did Adams go? Yeah, Adams went in the 5 spot to David. That's who I was actually really looking for. But I have to go Stafford there because I can't let the drafter in the 3 spot take Stafford at 14 to stack him with Kyron or maybe back stack him and lock me out of my Stafford Puka Nakua stack. Honestly, Wentz unstacked could be just as fine if Stafford has such a low ceiling with no rushing upside. But I just felt like the options I had there were so flat. I guess I could have taken Addison and Hawkinson later. I'm still gonna do Jordan Mason. Even though it's the Cleveland defense, I think Jordan Mason is that good. So I'm gonna go ahead and take Jordan Mason. Like one of the things I thought the Green Bay defense was good enough to hold the Cowboys players in check in the Sunday night game, and it was a 40-40 shootout. So I don't want to like overcompensate for how good a defense can be. In a 1 game sample size, anything can kind of happen. Mason 5 picks past ADP seems pretty solid. Judy is fine. We know Addison's a baller. Do I want a piece of Coleman? Do I go Hawkinson for what's the tight end situation? Nobody has a tight end except for David, who has 2. I'm gonna go Addison here. I'm not scrolling down yet. There's so many good options at tight end. Ramondre Stevenson's still available is kind of crazy. I think he's in a good spot. He's had some bad weeks. He's had some fumbles, but he's still getting the work and he's in a good spot against the Bills. Hawkinson goes to the draft in 3 spot, kind of just like I expected. I have to take a tight end with my last pick. Somehow I have 2 Vikings. It might have ended up being a better team to wait and go Wentz. But I will take Harold Fannin, I think, and bet on talent. See if we can get Harold Fannin's first touchdown of his career. Not how I intended to play it. I have 4 pieces of the lowest scoring game on the slate by far. And then I have a stack Stafford and Puka Nakua. So I don't have any pieces to the 49ers, which I probably want more of that for a shootout situation like I was describing. Or it's just an avoid 49ers week if Purdy's out, all the receivers are hurt. You're not getting McCaffrey. I don't have any Bills and I don't have any Patriots. So I'm also avoiding that game. So I played it really in a kind of a weird way, but I got some, I don't know, a combination that might not be unique, but might be a little bit less owned. with getting Mason to fall, or we just see Mason's ADP really start to tank the rest of the week. And then people knowing they're playing the Bills. David ended up going Josh Allen. He takes Devontae Adams, Hunter Henry at his tight end, flexes Kincaid for the stack. He gets Stevenson, which I thought was a good pick there, the late running back. Gets Keon Coleman for the double stack. So yeah, I think the way that David played it is pretty fun around the that's really focusing on that Bills Patriots game, and then he just has a little Devontae Adams piece, hopefully getting some touchdown upside there. I guess I kind of played it in a similar way. I really just bet on one game, just not the game that my quarterback and stacked receivers in. Traded Jamar for Sutton and Henderson. Interesting. A lot of faith in Henderson. Henderson goes number 16 in this one, so I was kind of curious to see where he would go, where Judy would go, Mason, Addison. Tongas does get drafted. What's up, Suave? He says, would you drop Braylon Allen for Sean Tucker off the chance that Bucky is out for a long time this season? I think so. I don't see much for Braylon Allen right now. Sean Tucker's kind of a speculative ad. It's just hard to know when to start Sean Tucker, even if Bucky is out. But I think so. I kind of like that idea. How we doing, Silent Static? My man. Who's your favorite wide receiver pickup this week? Kind of just depends on who's available, but I do like Malik Washington just fine. Darius Slayton's fine, even though I'm not really a big fan of his. And what else? I had one other one I was thinking of. I mean, those kind of cover it. Those are kind of my two right now that I can think of. Super deep would be Isaiah Bond with the Tillman injury going to IR. Judkins plus Mason is gross, my guy. Yeah, I know you would say that, Binking. That's why I emphasized sometimes you got to swim against the current. You got to get different. How many people are going to be like, oh, it's a big game for Mason and Judkins in the lowest scoring predicted Vegas match, total point matchup? Thoughts on Waller? 10% fab drop. I think for 10%, you might not get him. Somebody who needs a tight end with all these tight end injuries might get him for more than that. He looked good in this first game back. I'll have to give him that. Red zone monster, but I'm not putting a bunch to get him. I'm just in a spot where on a lot of my teams, I'm in a good spot at tight end. So I think I'm fortunate to not have to need to get him. Smoke this team in a bad way. It's a donation. Yeah. Sometimes I know you're just kidding. Sometimes you got to donate a few teams just to feel it out and to get right. Because think about it this way. It only takes one. It only takes one, but you got to get the reps in. You got to know where the players go, the mental reps, the ADP, what's going on, what other people are tending to do, what they might not do, where the tight ends might go. First tight end when it picked 12, and David took 2 in a row with Henry and Kincaid. So I got Fannin. Could have had Hawkinson if I took him over Addison. I think that could have been a play. I just don't know if I would want Mason and Hawkinson and Addison, so I'm actually kind of interested to go Fannin there. Team 1 is fire, Top Gun. He has McCaffrey and Jefferson, which would seem good in almost any given fantasy season. Drake May stacked with Henderson. He has Tongas and Jerry Jeudy. I think his team's fine. It's got a lot of upside. Jerry Jeudy can also break a slate. Jerry Jeudy can go off, but it's just kind of few and far in between when he does that. Can be also a kind of guy that's like borderline draftable in this format. If you're going to scroll down, he goes undrafted. This could easily be true, right? It's just quarterback play, team environment, matchups. Evan Ingram. Not super excited about Evan Ingram. They use a lot of tight ends, Troutman, and he's their best pass catching tight end. He's supposed to be the Joker, but I'm not super excited about Evan Ingram. Yeah, Binking's a big Tongas fan. I mean, he's been. I think he's had 2 touchdowns right over the first 4 weeks. Had a bunch of targets. Nina wants to know Drake May or Dak rest of season. Big play bonus league. I think it's close, but probably a higher floor with Drake May, and then but Dak is also fine. Dak's fine. He's going to be in some shootouts, I guess. The way their defense is allowing other teams to score. So I don't know. I personally slightly lean Dak, but I think Drake May is like the consensus answer. Binking hates this team. Yeah, Ingram could have some bad weeks. I think he's not like a top 12 tight end play. Get this one off the screen. He says Ricky Pearsall goes undrafted, so does Juwan Jennings. Until we get further clarity on them, it's going to be something to figure out. Carson Wentz is the scroll down quarterback in this one. Brock Purdy did get drafted. Njoku would be the scroll down tight end. Corum. Xavier Scott shows up. Tutu, who had a big score finally. But I don't know if we want to chase that in week 5. Demarcus Robinson, if Jennings and Pearsall don't play. Butte hasn't done much since week 1. Didn't do much in week 1. Brian Robinson doesn't do anything. Palmer was interesting going into the season, not being utilized. They asked, there was an interview where they were talking to Sean McDermott, the head coach, and they said, is Josh Palmer and his, not playing and his declining snap count, is that because he's dealing with an injury, or a coaching decision? And Sean McDermott, head coach, said it's a coaching decision. So just how the game's being played, and they're not really utilizing him a lot. So I think that is a possible scroll down, but kind of a tough one right now. I would probably rather have essentially Elijah Moore is undraftable too, but it would be a scroll down. Dylan Gabriel announced the starter, so that's actually worth a scroll down take. I think Naylor could be played. He just has like almost no ceiling, but weak flex. If there's really not that many touchdowns to go around in this slate, and he gets one of them, you might just want to have him in your flex. Thielen just can keep dreaming. Dylan Sampson, some guy we've already seen have a big week in week 1 here and did it without scoring a touchdown. I wonder if Dylan Sampson could be a scroll down play that's worth something. Also, I haven't even seen Ray Davis yet. I think Ray Davis could be a scroll down play. He just hasn't been getting used at all, but the promise kind of was there going into the season. Jerome Ford, similarly, he could be a guy. They just haven't really been using him, but he has been a guy that when he gets opportunity, he can be all right. I think obviously you'd want to play 90% through Quinshon Judkins, but there is going to be some paths where Jerome Ford has a bigger week and is a scroll down guy that you might want to get to. But that's about it. That's pretty far. Let's do another one. Let's get back into another hurry up, primetime hurry up. Feeling out these ADPs. Number 2. Drake May. Yeah, I think most people are Drake May, especially because Dak's out right now. Or sorry, not Dak. CD is out right now. Okay, we got in quick. We got the 3 spot in this one. Been trying to trade Dak. No one wants him. Yeah, no one's going to trade for Dak in a single quarterback league with CeeDee Lamb out. It's just kind of the honest truth. Pick 2, rest of season. Travis Hunter, Jamison Williams, Alec Eomanor, Malik Washington. I am going to go Travis Hunter and JMO, and it's not even close. Eomanor is fine. Malik Washington's fine. I mean, Eomanor could be breaking out. So, but it's Travis Hunter. Henderson and RJ Harvey rest of season. It's looking better for RJ Harvey right now because the Broncos could be in some really favorable game scripts. He has the ability to have, some big plays, I think, either catching the ball or running it. But it's close. I like them both. We've seen a game from Harvey. I think we're going to soon see a game from Henderson. It's just weird the coaching staff is still have so much faith in Ramondre Stevenson and Antonio Gibson's factoring in. We thought Tyler Bidet was going to factor in a little bit after week 1, and that has soon kind of faded out of being a thing. So I think I feel comfortable with RJ Harvey, a slight lean over Henderson, but I like them both a lot. The question is, do I want to go James Cook here or take Allen and then see what Joe Donald does? I'm going to go Josh Allen. We saw it was, I guess, a slightly negative matchup for the running backs in the run game against the Patriots. They're a pretty good run stop defense. Jefferson, Kyron, or Quinshawn. I'm kind of leaning Quinshawn there. I mean, Jefferson had a nice week with Wentz. Kyron hadn't scored yet. No, I guess he scored week 1 against Houston. That's right. And he scored a reception touchdown against Philly. The rare Kyron reception touchdown. I'm going Quinshawn Judkins right now over Justin Jefferson, but I don't want to do that every time. I'll have to be smart about how I kind of work that exposure in. I'm definitely taking both of them over Kyron right now. Even though Kyron could have a good game environment for him, Devontae Adams is also a fun piece. He's been scoring on a hot streak, 3 straight touchdowns. Even though he was potentially dealing with a hamstring injury, I think he's still a guy you want to get a lot of. So I need to work him in. I think I've got Judkins, Jefferson, and Devontae Adams all in a tier. I've got McCaffrey, Nakua, and James Cook in a tier, but you have to factor in like getting Josh Allen. So I think I actually take Mason after that grouping because of the matchup against the Cleveland Browns. In the last draft, I got Mason at pick 15. Here he goes at pick 5. But those things kind of happen in these small player pools. It's get your guys, and it's be right. It's get the touchdowns when it matters. Khalil Shakir here to me seems really smart, or I could get Henry first. The drafter in the 4 spot's definitely going to take a receiver or 2, so I'm going to push my luck with Henry and just go Kincaid. Otherwise, 2 touchdowns in a row might be lucky, but I'm fine with Shakir. Same thing with Kincaid, 2 touchdowns in a row. Not as much target and reception and receiving yards. So I like Kincaid though, but let me get the stack and play it through Shakir for now. We're still looking for that big Travion Henderson game. He got the touchdown, but he didn't get a whole lot of usage. Yeah, Sean Payton's hard to figure out too. Yo, what's up, Pierce? How we doing, brother? Hope you're having a great late Tuesday night. Maybe you're on the West Coast. Hunter Henry does go. Okay, so I kind of predicted that in a way, but maybe I just go ahead and double stack Kincaid. I could go Henderson. I can get Diggs to get different, get a bring back player there. I think I'm going to fade Diggs. I'd rather go Addison over Diggs, and definitely Pearsall if he's healthy, but we just don't know if he's healthy or playing. He's not practicing. So early in the week, let me go Kincaid to get my tight end figured out. Although it's kind of a nice slate to go late tight end. But let's just hope the good times roll. The last 2 weeks, it's been touchdowns for both these guys. Maybe it continues. Pierce says he has Henry, Bijan, JT, and Judkins. Dang, you're stacked. I only really have Justin Jefferson and JSN and Franklin on the bench, but I traded Mika Egbuka for Judkins in the Lions D. Who should I trade away, or do I just play it chill? I think depending on how many players you have to start, you could just play it chill. My first kind of reaction would be to trade away Derrick Henry and get the best receiver that you could possibly get. Or if you think you could get an elite onesie, like a quarterback or a tight end, that would be worth having. But I like the other running backs he got for sure. Addison's still there. I need another receiver. I want Addison. I'm going to end up with a lot of Addison at this rate, especially if Pearsall is not playing. I could do Ramondre on the way back. I'm going to end up with way too much Addison. I need to chill. Should I scroll for Corum or do Ramondre? Xavier Scott on the thesis of the playing from behind thing. I think that's going to be kind of hard to do, but it's worth a scroll down every once in a while. I could go Hawkinson or Fannin. I don't really want to do that. I'll go Ramondre Stevenson this time, just to get more into that Buffalo New England game. The wide receivers, not the most inspiring. Assuming Juwan Jennings is limited or out. He was pretty limited last week and didn't look good. Yeah, it seems like a time to do Allen every time. But there are, Wentz is going to be going undrafted and Dylan Gabriel is going to be going undrafted. And that gives them kind of a unique quality where you can beat out a lot of teams with leverage on them. They could both have rushing touchdowns. Their best week could beat Josh Allen's worst week. And it's a 1-game slate, weird sample sizes, anything can happen. So I want to have some exposure to probably every quarterback, every tight end. And then I need to get selective on these matchups and how to play it through all of these running backs and receivers, because there's a lot of running backs going undrafted too. A lot of the RB2s are going undrafted. Stevenson and Henderson are going to get drafted in every draft. Why shouldn't Kyron and Corum get drafted every time? Why shouldn't Judkins and Sampson get drafted every time? Mason and Scott, I guess. So there's even more than that. I mean, you could go Cook and Ray Davis. I guess McCaffrey and Brian Robinson is kind of Brian Robinson. I don't know, but you can make arguments that any of the RB2s should be getting drafted more than none. But we see like Stevenson gets drafted every time. He's the only one getting drafted every time. He might even be the RB1, but he, fantasy wise. Pierce wants to know, does he trade Henry and like Franklin's or Stafford for Johnston and Henderson? I would do that. Yeah, I like that. Judkins? You don't like Judkins? Let's go back to the data, right? The matchup. So opponents against Minnesota are averaging 130 rushing yards per game. They've got 4 rushing touchdowns. That's well above average in both regards. Decent total yards. And then Cleveland, right? They've been running only about 85 rushing yards per game and 3 rushing touchdowns. So it'd be a plus matchup for Cleveland against Minnesota to run the ball. We saw what the Steelers could do with Kenny Gainwell against Minnesota. And What was the total there? Because I know that he scored twice, but what was Gainwell's rushing total again? I think it was fine. I think his total yards was better, right, than just his pure rushing. Here's Gainwell. No, it's fine. 99 rushing yards, 35 receiving. So if Kenneth Gainwell can put up 28.4 half point fantasy points against the Vikings, I think Judkins can do something close to that or as good as that, best case scenario. Binking's not about it. You think Henry for Johnston? I think with the lineup of running backs you have the ability to afford that. And Johnston's been on a heater. I mean, he's a huge part of their offense right now. So potentially, the Ravens without Lamar Jackson are going to be concerning, but maybe they just run the ball incessantly through Derrick Henry. I'm actually selling low on Chase, so I'm not really buying Chase right now. But I would try to get Waddle. Yeah, I love Judkins. I'm a big fan. I'm not sure about his personal life, but I will leave that for between him and the Lord to figure out. We'll just draft for fantasy. Because he's having some nice start for as long as he's been active and all the time that he missed. Henry for Javonte Williams. I don't know there. I'm not very in on Javonte Williams. I want to see if Blue can come in and take over some of the role. But if Javonte Williams is going to hold down being RB1 and being highly utilized for the Cowboys the rest of the season, and they're actually running it pretty efficiently, it's interesting. I think it sounds weird though to like trade Derrick Henry for Javonte Williams, but just like straight up rest of season, who would I rather have? Still Derrick Henry, I think. I mean, how bad has it been? I don't own Derrick Henry in a single league that I'm like managing, so I'm not as close to it, like thinking about how he's hurting my team or helping my team. But when I look him up, it's pretty concerning. The usage the last 2 weeks, the game scripts. I think that's what it comes down to. I think I would still stick to Henry over Javonte Williams. Yeah. Yeah. Mistakes were made. That's gonna be it for me tonight drafting here. It's getting late. Gotta run. But thanks for watching. Thanks for all the questions, hanging out tonight. Have a great waiver run. Get those trades done. I'll see y'all back here tomorrow night in the evening with Who Hames and Hartman for another week 5 preview of the main slate look ahead show. Gonna be a fun time. Hope to see you there. Make sure you slap the like on your way out, and I'll catch y'all in another draft real soon. Peace out, friends. Have a good night. Later.